Welcome to the Premier League preview brought to you by sportsbet.io, where we are looking at Matchday 10 of the Premier League. Do like and subscribe to get your latest previews regarding Premier League football, football across Europe, Champions League, NFL, and our newly launched NBA podcast as well. Part 1, we're looking at 4 big games on Part 1 of the Premier League preview, starting with Manchester United against Chelsea, 4:30 kickoff UK time on Sunday. The prices in this one: Manchester United 2.62. They've had a relatively quiet week, Manchester United. Chelsea at 2.62 and 3.55 for the tie. Of course, Ten Hag sacked as manager of Manchester United during the week. Man United have only Man United have only won 2 of the last 8 Premier League games, hence the sacking of Ten Hag. And Cole Palmer has scored 4 in his last 2 games against Manchester United. Neil, I'm going to come to you first on this one. Man United against Chelsea. Your thoughts and a score prediction, please.
God, it used to be a big game, this one, didn't it? United are hoping that they can get the season back again. Obviously, Ten Hag has finally gone. I don't know why it took so long, but yeah, he's gone. And there seems to be a mood change at Manchester United. We saw that in the League Cup against Leicester. Van Nistelrooy took over. He'll be in charge for this game. They're talking about Amorim coming in as the new manager. But Paul's been there. When a manager leaves and things aren't great and the results aren't great, there's a lot of unhappiness. When that manager goes, it can shift the mood and momentum big time. And maybe that could be the start for United to maybe start picking up results that they haven't been doing. So this is a tough game. You know, Chelsea are a side in form. They rotated it themselves in the League Cup when they were beaten to Newcastle. But I see United turning in the right direction now that Ten Hag has gone, and I think they'll get something from the game.
What's your score prediction on this one then, my friend? I will tell you that if Chelsea do win this one, they will move 9 points clear of Manchester United, and that would be 9 points clear after just 10 games. That gives you an idea of the difference between these two sides in the start of the season.
Yeah, my score prediction. I think Chelsea, United, Tottenham are fighting for 4th, 5th, and so this would be a must-not-lose game for United. I think that would be a really bad one in terms of the gap already, even though it's early on in the season. Yeah, I've got a score draw in this game. I've got Jackson to score. Jackson scored in 4 of his last 4 away games for Chelsea. But Chelsea haven't won at Old Trafford. And the reason why I'm not going Chelsea to win, I know Palmer will play and make a big difference. I think there'll be a reaction from United. They haven't won at Old Trafford since 2013 in the Premier League. And this is where your questions come in. And who got the winning goal for Chelsea that day? 2013 was the last time Chelsea won away at Old Trafford in the Premier League. Who got United, by the way, they'd won the league 2013. Chelsea were 3rd. So it was in May 2013. That was the last time United won the league. Pretty much one of the last games of the season. Chelsea went there and won when United were champions. Who got the winning goal for Chelsea?
That's probably the hardest question that you've given us in any one of these series podcasts. I mean, Chelsea have had 2013 players since 2013.
I'll narrow it down. Spanish. Did play for Man United. I think. I think he played for Man United.
Juan Mata.
Oh, nailed it. Yes. There you go. Right, that was my quiz question. I've got 1-1 anyway. 1-1.
Which is generally the scoreline we've had between these two sides. There was a spell, kind of circa 2020, 2021, where they had 5 games consecutively that finished all level, 2 0-0s and 3 1-1s, and then bizarrely last season we had an absolute goal fest between these two sides. Chelsea have failed to score in only 1 of their last 10 Premier League away games, and in 9 games they've scored over 1.5 goals in 7 of them, so they are good for a goal. Chelsea, are you backing the away side to pick up 3 points here, Paul?
Listen, Man United, I think there's going to be a reaction from Man United. We saw it midweek with Leicester. Mel's is quite right. When a manager goes, that not a lot of the dressing room, they're buying. You can see that they're not buying into what he's doing. There's players there that are underperforming, underachieving. I mean, Xerxes still hasn't hit the ground. Rashford, there's still so much more to come. We talk about him every week. Højlund as well. Listen, I like Højlund. I think he's a good player. I think there's a player in there, but I think he's got to get the right manager to get the best out of him. And I think, obviously, Ruud van Nistelrooy's got the win midweek. It doesn't look like he's going to be staying. But there is going to be an air of, look, do we need to impress the new manager? Amorim's coming in. Is he going to be inside Old Trafford? Is he going to be watching from afar? Is he actually going to be in the dugout? We don't know the situation yet. So there's a lot of players that will be playing for the future, and I think that reaction will come. Chelsea, disappointing loss to Newcastle midweek. You know more of what you're going to get from Chelsea. I think it's a definite both teams to score. I agree with Mel's, both teams to score. But I'm just erring on the side of Manchester United here. I just think there's a reaction. I think there's players playing for the future, and with a new manager coming in, whether it's the new manager bounce or individual performances, players looking after themselves and their own careers. I'm going for a home win. I think it's both teams to score, but I think United win this 3-1.
3-1. Okay. As I said, we had a number of games where these games with the results between these two were really tight, and then the last three games have been a 4-1 Man United, 2-1 Man United, and a 4-3 Chelsea last time. So we've had an absolute explosion of goals. So that's the guys' thoughts regarding Man United against Chelsea. Before we quickly move on to Newcastle versus Arsenal, I've got a quick question about Manchester United, and this is going to be their sixth permanent manager since Alex Ferguson left Old Trafford, which gives you an idea of the turbulent period that there's been at Manchester United. The England job has always been seen as a manager to be the impossible job. Is, Neil, I'll come to you first, is managing Manchester United right now almost job impossible?
No, I think because they've had such difficult times in terms of being way off the pace. I think if you're a manager, you're thinking, I could be the one to take them back to where Manchester United have been. And if you're a manager to take them into a title race, not saying win it, the fans will love you. And United have been nowhere near that for a number of years. So whoever it is, if it is Almiron who comes in, the fans will buzz off the fact they could get them back into a title race. It's a job all the managers will be desperate. I want to be the one. I want to be the one who takes United back to where they were, because they're miles off it.
What about you, Paul? Manchester United, job impossible?
No, perfect time to get it. No manager ever gets a job when things are going well, or very, very rarely. Very rarely does a Jurgen Klopp happen where he leaves the club in a good position and a manager picks up a team or a squad that are in a really good place challenging for titles. 9 times or 10 times out of 10, a manager gets a job because results are poor and league positions are poor. And that's where Manchester United are. We always talk about Manchester United, and we're guilty of comparing it always to Sir Alex Ferguson, but that's where they've put themselves on a global scale. You look in other countries, you look in Italy, in Germany, in Spain. If Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Juventus, Inter Milan, if they're languishing in 14th place in their league, they're getting the same type of headlines as Manchester United are. Eric Ten Hag's not getting that amount of time at any one of those clubs, so he's lucky. But in answer to your question about the manager of Manchester United, yeah, it does seem a poison chalice, but actually where they're going to go from here, they're only going to get better than 14th. They're only going to improve. You look at the players in the squad, yeah, they've grossly overspent on players that haven't been good enough. But players that haven't been good enough haven't got better under a manager that's not coached them any better. So you look at the players at United, and I see them. I don't see any one of them that's improved under Eric Ten Hag. I don't see a system or a team that's improved. The only way that Manchester United can go with a good manager is up the table and better than they have been. I've always said it, the best thing you can give a good manager is time. Yes, you can give them hundreds of millions of pounds to spend, but you've got to give them time to work with players and make players better. And Eric Ten Hag didn't do that. And if Almiron's a good coach that we think he is, the credentials that he's got, he can set up a team. They're a good side. They're a good side to watch his teams, what he's managed. But defensively, they've got a structure and a shape. I think they can only get better, Manchester United, with a top quality manager.
Thank you. We'll move on to Newcastle against Arsenal, kicking off match day 10 of the Premier League. It's a 12:30 UK time kickoff on Saturday. Newcastle are 3.75 in this one. Arsenal are 1.95, 3.75 for the tie as well. In the last 12 head-to-head games between these two sides across all competitions, both teams to score has only landed in one of those 12, and Newcastle have not won in 5 Premier League games and have only scored 3 goals in those 5 games. Would it be fair to say that both these sides, Paul, are coming into this one a little bit off form, with Arsenal also not picking up maximum points in the last 2 games in the league?
Yeah, questions have been asked about Arsenal, aren't they, at the moment, because they have dropped off the pace a little bit. You look at where Man City are, you look at Liverpool, they're not going away. Arsenal out the 3. There's only a couple of weeks ago that Arsenal were title favourites. I think the odds that we looked at, weren't they? I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, Arsenal were favourites to pick the title off City. But now you look at where they are with injuries, players missing, recent results and performances as well. Going to St James, it's always a difficult place to go. But I mean, I look at the league table. Arsenal, like we said, just dropped off it, but Newcastle sat in 12th. So far off it from where they want to be. Home form is always going to be the key for them. Isak getting his goal this week, again, 2 against Chelsea. He's going to be key for them. They've got to keep him fit. We know that Callum Wilson with his injuries and Isak with his injuries, Isak's going to be a main player for them. I worry about the lack of pace at the back for Newcastle. I think Arsenal have got the players that can hurt them in the wide areas as well. But this is an interesting one to watch. Arsenal are chasing the title, and Newcastle are wanting to get to the Champions League places to challenge the likes of Chelsea, Tottenham, etc., Aston Villa for that fourth place. But at the moment, they're so far off it, they've got to start winning at home. The win midweek against Newcastle, against Chelsea in the Cup, will do them the world of good.
What's your score prediction in this one? As I said, Arsenal are 1.95. Price is correct at the time of recording. Do you trust Arsenal at just under 2 to win this game, or are you going for something pro Newcastle? What's your thoughts on score prediction, please?
I like Newcastle. I like Newcastle at home, but I don't like backing against Arsenal this season because they do seem to find a way. I think it'll be an open game. I mean, remember the VAR decision there a couple of seasons ago. It's always close between these two, and there's always goals. I fancy Newcastle just to nick it. I do. I think there'll be goals. I'm going to go Newcastle 2-1.
Wow, Newcastle to win 2-1. They did beat Arsenal 1-0 last time out in 2023. I will tell you that of the last 7 head-to-head meetings between these two sides, 6 of them have been under 2.5 goals. Do you agree, Neil, or are we having a split opinion here? Are you going for something pro Arsenal?
Yeah, a split opinion. I agree with under 2.5 goals. We saw a response in the League Cup from Arsenal. He went strong, didn't he? Arteta against Preston, won the game 3-0. And I think we'll see another reaction this weekend that they won't like, the fact that they're 5 points behind City. Newcastle, 12th. They've not been at it. They've played 4 games at home this season. They've scored 4 goals. They've just not been the Newcastle we've seen in previous seasons. Pressure's building. They needed that win against Chelsea in the League Cup. But in the Premier League, they have been off the levels that they've set in recent seasons. I see Arsenal going there and nicking this one. A really hard fought, but one of those performances where they've ground it out, and it's a really big away victory. Newcastle got beat to Brighton, don't forget, maybe in the last home game, and I think it'll be the same scoreline. I've got Saka to score. He's got 3 in his last 3 starts. You know, there's a lad who's absolutely top quality. Arsenal to win it 1-0.
Yeah. Generally is tight between these two sides. You've gone for Arsenal to win by 1-0. The first split opinion of a score result. You've gone for Newcastle to win here, Paul, and Arsenal for Neil. Next up on 2 p.m. on Sunday is Spurs against Aston Villa. They had very different results in the League Cup during the week, where Spurs beat Manchester City and Aston Villa lost at home and were knocked out to Crystal Palace. The prices in this one: Spurs are 1.92, Aston Villa are 3.65. And I say that because that's a fairly big price for a side who have actually done damage at Spurs in the past. 4 for the tie as well. It's a bizarre twist. Spurs have scored 5 goals in the last 2 games at Villa, but have only scored 1 goal in the last 2 games at home to Villa. So Spurs have a better record at Aston Villa than at home to them. So I'll come to you first, Neil, on that one. But 3.65 at the time of recording for Villa, that's tempting, is it, or is it not?
All over it. Absolutely all over that one, yeah. Spursy, can we call them that after last weekend? They away at Palace. What was that all about, getting beat to Palace? Then they beat City, brilliant high, thinking they can win the cup for the first cup in however many years. And back down to earth against Villa. And this is the game which is almost like a battle for the top 4, isn't it? You know, Spurs are very much thinking they can get in there. Villa the same. It won't be a draw. So what are the odds for the draw? It won't be a draw, and this is the reason why. The last 20 meetings, there hasn't been a draw. 20 games, not even a draw. And the last time it was a draw, Robbo will get this one right, it was 0-0. Last time it was draw, Spurs at home, 2010. Who were the goalkeepers? So the last draw was 2012, but that was at Villa. So the last draw at Spurs...
Emilio Gomez and Brad Friedel.
Oh, he's too good. He's too good. He's on form, isn't he? Hey,
that's very impressive, I have to say.
You know
annoyingly impressive.
Why I know that? Because Aurelio Gomez went in to replace me, and I went to Blackburn because Brad Friedel nicked my move to Villa.
Fond memories of this one then for Paul.
Oh, love it. Yeah, but so for me, I'm all over Villa for this one. I know they've sort of drawn too many games recently, drawn 3 of the last 4. They're unbeaten in 7 in the Premier League. Yeah, I think they're really good odds for Aston Villa. They rested a few as well. Watkins will be absolutely fresh, raring to go. Watkins, 1 in 5. He scored in his last 2 away Premier League games. I'm on Watkins and a Villa win.
Yeah, Morgan Rogers and Ollie Watkins have also been on the score sheet in the same games as well. Morgan Rogers and Ollie Watkins have both scored in each of the last two away games for Aston Villa. And Aston Villa have won their last 2 games at Spurs and 3 of the last 4 against Spurs. So what was your scoreline again in this one, Neil?
Yeah, 2-1 away win.
2-1. I'll get the price on that one very quickly, because if Aston Villa are... in fact, I can't for some reason. Now I can. 2-1, the scoreline, because this will be a fairly big price. That's 11. Just over 11 for 2-1 for Aston Villa. I've got to be honest, the pricing on this one, Paul, doesn't quite make sense. In the last 25 home games in the Premier League for Spurs, they've kept 4 clean sheets. 4 clean sheets in 25 at home for Spurs. And Aston Villa have scored 7 goals at Villa Park this season and 9 goals away from Villa Park. So you've got a side who concede plenty at home to a side who score plenty away from home. What's your thinking on the pricing on this one, and who you're backing, Spurs, Aston Villa?
Can you trust Spurs with anything? I mean, like you say, last week against Crystal Palace, they got beat, but they were poor. I mean, the week before, decent results. And then they go and beat Manchester City, but then it's just the way that they played against Crystal Palace. Didn't really offer anything going forward. We all spoke last week thinking, Spurs come off the back of a decent result, go to Palace and beat a Palace team who were poor. Listen, take nothing away from Palace, but Spurs were awful last week, and then they go and beat Manchester City. There's going to be goals in this. I mean, I was at the Villa game last week. I did the Villa-Bournemouth game. I thought Bournemouth were good in that game. They had the opportunities to score more than they did. The Villa defence looked fairly breachable at home, let's say. Bournemouth had the chances. They got the equaliser very late on in the game, but they could have had a few more. This is probably the hardest game of the weekend to call, but there's one thing: I think there'll be goals. I think there'll be overs in the goals. Never back against Tottenham, but genuinely not putting a lot on it, because you don't know with Tottenham. Tottenham at home, you fancy them. Villa away, you look what they do in the Champions League. You look at Villa's clean sheets in the Premier League, struggled 1 all season against Manchester United. You look at Villa's clean sheets in the Champions League, top of the Champions League, haven't conceded a goal. So you don't know defensively what you're going to get with Villa. But I'm going to back my old club, and I think there's going to be goals. I'm going to go 3-2 Tottenham.
Wow, 3-2 for Spurs. So either way, entertaining game. I will tell you, in the last 8 games at Spurs, Villa have scored in 7 of them. This is a happy hunting ground for Aston Villa. I could tell you the last time Spurs won at home to Villa was back in 2021. Goals from Højbjerg and a target own goal. The goal scorer for that day was Ollie Watkins. He's got a fairly good record for Aston Villa against Spurs. So another split opinion. We've covered 3 games so far and split opinion in 2 of them. I am liking this. Right, the 4th big game of the weekend and the final game for part 1 is Liverpool against Brighton. This is 3 p.m. on Saturday. Liverpool are 1.41. Brighton will be sick of the sight of Liverpool. They just literally played them in the League Cup at home and lost 3-2. Brighton are 7.8, 4.8 for the tie. I'm going to go to Paul first on this one, even though we got close connections to Liverpool for Neil. Your thinking, please, and a score prediction for Liverpool against Brighton.
Well, listen, Brighton unpredictable again this season, haven't they? Changed it up again. To be fair, both teams changed it up midweek in the Cup. Brighton sat 6th. At home, they're a different proposition. I think this would be a closer game if it was at home. Very, very rarely back against Liverpool at Anfield. Normally get the job done. And the way that they play this year under Arne Slot, listen, we speak about them all the time, playing an ever so slightly different way, but continuing on what Jurgen Klopp's done. They're challenging at the top of the league. I think there's a little wobble in Man City, I really do. So midweek against Tottenham, and just listening to what Pep Guardiola's saying, the noises he's making, the amount of injuries they've got, and I think Liverpool will be there or thereabouts. I think they've got a really good chance this season, Liverpool. Arsenal, I think they had their opportunity last year. I think they blew themselves out. If they can stay the pace this year, it'll be interesting to see. But I think Liverpool are the real deal, and against anyone at Anfield, very, very difficult to back against. Brighton, I saw them against Tottenham, defensively woeful in the first half. Second half going forward, they were good. I'm going to go for my favourite score at Anfield, what I see quite often. I fancy Liverpool for a clean sheet, though. They're different this year. I was going to go 2-1, but I'm going to go 2-0 Liverpool, because I fancy them for a clean sheet at Anfield.
Well, generally they don't keep a clean sheet in this fixture. I will tell you, of the last 5 head-to-head fixtures, in fact 6, both team scores landed in 5 of them. In Liverpool's, I've got a question for you, Neil, actually, a Liverpool-based question, so the pressure's on. In the last 6 home games in the Premier League that Liverpool have won, they've won the first half in all 6. The last time they failed to win the first half but win a game of football was at home to Brighton last season, where it was 1-1 at half-time, and Liverpool went on to win. In the last 18 wins at home in the Premier League, Liverpool have scored over 1.5 goals in all 18. So when Liverpool do win at home in Anfield, they're scoring 2 or more goals. The last time they won by a single goal was in May 2023. Can Neil tell me who that was against?
1-0 at home. No, I can't.
No, I didn't think you would.
Wolves?
Do you want to have a guess? He's gone for Wolves. Have a guess, Paul.
Looking at your face, Sheffield United.
That'd be silly. I'm happy to lose 1-0 anywhere, but generally we concede more than that. It was Brentford. It was 1-0 at home to Brentford. So you've gone for a comfortable victory, 2-0 at home for Liverpool. What about you, Neil? Are you not? You won't be. I know this is a silly question. Is that price just a little bit too big on Brighton? 7.8. They are 6th in the table. They are, they do score goals. They've scored in 9 of the last 10 away games. Is that a bit too big on Brighton? Or are you firmly on Liverpool, as I suspect you are?
This won't be a comfortable game for Liverpool. This is second against 6. Two teams who've started the season really well. The dress rehearsal in the League Cup on Wednesday, both teams made 8 changes, so you can't really take a lot from that one. So there'll be more to come from both teams this weekend. Brighton have lost 1 game this season in the Premier League. That was away to Chelsea. They've not lost many games, not won enough. I think they've drawn too many. They've won 2 of the last 7 in the Premier League. So I think a draw would be a good result for them. But they've done all right at Anfield. They got turned over last year, but the year before they drew. The year before that they drew. And they beat Liverpool during COVID. Who was the manager for Brighton the time that Brighton came to Anfield during COVID and turned us over? The only time since 1983, I think it was, they've won at Anfield.
Was it Potter?
Chris Hughton.
Oof, Gav's back in the game. Yeah, Potter. Potter was the man who got the wins. Anyway, so listen, this will be a good game. Two sides will absolutely have a go. Brighton, the way they defend, I worry about them. Take too many chances. And I think Liverpool will take them. Nunez to score. He's got 1 in his last 14 Premier League games. 1 in 14. Nunez to start, Nunez to score, and Liverpool to win. I think just 2-1 for me.
2-1. Just a couple of questions, actually. Well, a fact, really. Mo Salah has scored in 67% of Premier League games so far this season. He's got 3 goals in the last 2 games versus Brighton. Gakpo had a very influential role and scored a couple of goals for Liverpool in the League Cup meeting when they won 3-2. Literally yesterday, the day of recording, that happened last night. Would that mean that he's just a play to start against Brighton, or will he be back on the bench? How would you play it?
Gakpo to start, absolutely, yeah. I think he took him off after 70 minutes and he kept Diaz on for 90. So if you're looking at that, you're thinking maybe Gakpo might start. Diaz started on the right. He's not going to start there ahead of Salah. Salah could go down the middle and Nunez might not start. He could go Diaz right, Gakpo left. But Gakpo, the manager has said, is going to play down the left-hand side for me. If you look at numbers, and the stat boys will love this, he has better end product than Luis Diaz. He started 15 games less than him last season. He had the same goal, same assists, same big chances created. He is end product, Cody Gakpo. So, yeah, I'd be surprised if he didn't start.
I will tell you this stat as well. In the last, including the League Cup meeting we had during the week, in the last 6 meetings between these two sides, Brighton have scored the first goal in 4 of those 6. You might fancy Brighton to score the first goal. That is it for part 1 of the Premier League preview, brought to you by sportsbet.io. Always gamble responsibly. And coming up next in part 2, we'll look at the rest of the games for Matchday 10 of the Premier League.